must be cautious.
Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hi, this is Nick Anastasiou, story editor on Star Wars The Clone Wars and Star Wars Bad Batch. And you are listening to Aggressive Negotiations.
That's right, you're picking up the deep space, outer rim broadcast emanations of your favorite Star Wars podcast, Aggressive Negotiations, out here as we explore everything that is worth exploring and a little more in the Star Wars galaxy far, far away and the neighboring galaxy, which is a galaxy farther away? Well, either way, I'm Jedi Master John Mills, and joining me on this journey, as I insist, as I demand, is Jedi Master Matthew Rushing. Matt, are you ready for another surprise topic tonight?
You know what, John? As we mentioned last week as we're recording this, we are in the most wonderful time of the year, and I can't think of anything more wonderful than, being surprised by a topic. But, we'd love it if people would, possibly subscribe to the show as a holiday gift to us. You could also tell people about the show and share us over on social media. You can follow us over at the Jedi Masters on X, and we're on Twitter with the entire network at Join Nerd Party. We're also on Instagram all together at the Nerd Party. You can find us online at thenerdparty.com. You can also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/thenerdparty. All of those places are great places to help us out. And maybe you're thinking, what could I give the Jedi Masters for the Christmas season, for Life Day? You know what we really like is some reviews over on Apple Podcasts, because it's been a long time since that's happened. If you want to brighten our holidays and make them merry and bright, give us some reviews. But John, please, I am on the edge of my pilot seat. What is this surprise topic for tonight?
So, over on Assembling Avengers, we talked about the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special, and on that I mentioned how it seemed like a big budget, more perfected vision of the Star Wars holiday special, the much reviled, much mocked, and now ironically liked, I emphasize ironically liked, venture, between Star Wars and Empire. Everybody, you used to have to get bootlegs on VHS, and now you can just watch it on YouTube. Ain't technology grand? While we were talking about that, the thought occurred to me that I don't know if the market necessarily is hungry for holiday specials at this point. But do you think, with the desire for more streaming entertainment, with the desire to retain more people on the Disney Plus platform, and the fact that they're going to start running ads and most likely reconfigure shows to accommodate those ad breaks, do you think the time is right for them to go and try to make a modern day Star Wars holiday special that is a more perfect version of the vision that they tried for in 1978?
I think this is a really hard question because, as we mentioned in our previous episode, we were talking about Star Wars celebrations and the idea of the Empire and the shutting down of, holidays all across the galaxy, and, the kind of the squishing and squashing of religion and the Force and all these type of things. I think one of the hard things about the Star Wars galaxy, because it's so varied and there's so many planets, the idea of Life Day being on Kashyyyk, and because we knew Chewie, that kind of all made sense. But it seems hard to try and make something up that would be like a galactic holiday where every planet would kind of celebrate, where you kind of bring together the holiday spirit. And partly just because I think it's just hard to translate the idea of what we think of as the Christmas holidays, Hanukkah, those type of things, to the galaxy far, far away. And so I'm not quite sure necessarily how you do it. I don't know if I even in my brain have an idea of what would maybe create a better holiday special, and of course the one that we got.
Well, I mean, it's a low bar. That's That's for darn sure. Creating better than what we got, I would argue, could be done with a camcorder and an Instagram account in a weekend. But I think that you don't need to stay married to Life Day, because my brain goes towards something where you can have a holiday special that maybe is more, I mean, if anything, you could layer in with what we were talking about last week about the fact that, religious celebration would have been stamped out, a storyline more focused on the idea that people find a way to celebrate, even if they have to do it in the catacombs, sort of thing. People will always find a way to celebrate their faith or their special holidays, even if it's under the yoke of oppression. If it's important enough, you'll do it. But stepping away from the in-universe canon sort of stuff, maybe I'm an optimist. Feel free to tell me. Like, I see an opportunity for them to have some sort of special with rebels all being there, celebrating their own or sharing about their own holidays. Like, it almost like if you want to have a variety show sort of thing, it's a bunch of rebels from different cultures talking about the holidays that they celebrated, and then finding out that the whole thread of the overarching story is that even though they're from diverse backgrounds, they're still working toward a common goal of overthrowing the empire so they can all go back to the way life should be.
So I was thinking a couple things. One is that they did the Lego holiday special, which I thought actually was maybe the perfect version of this, because they can be so much more silly and self-referential and, have all of the characters from all of the different, timelines playing together because it's Lego. So that, I think that's the thing that works. But I was also thinking, if you wanted to create something, say, in the Mando verse, after Endor, why wouldn't that day, the day that the Death Star was destroyed, become basically like Endor Day? It's the day of freedom. It's the day of, it's kind of like their 4th of July, basically, but it becomes kind of that holiday where people come together and remember that, freedom is beautiful, and it creates this sense of coming together because that's what the rebellion did. And, so you can kind of drive off of those, holiday themes that we think of and pull them all together. And to me, that seems like the thing, if you want to kind of go in universe, that seems like the place to play, to create some sort of celebration that kind of happens almost basically galaxy wide, except for the Imperial Remnant, where people celebrate this thing, and it'd kind of be kind of fun to see Grogu's first Endor Day.
What you're proposing is an interesting story or set of stories in and of itself within the context of a series. I completely agree with that. I guess it takes us back to maybe the answer is no, that the time is not right. Maybe the time will never be right again to have like one of those old school holiday specials. Is Star Wars just in a place where there's too much lore around it now that, to your point, the Lego special was perfect because it's not bound by having to follow. It's not going to have anybody freak out on X or in a Facebook group about how it violates canon, or, oh, Han Solo would never do that sort of thing. Like, so I mean, gosh, I mean, as you're talking and it's like, oh, that's a great story that works. Is it possible that the audience is the problem now for these things, where we all take it so seriously that we're not willing to allow the space for a silly holiday special that has no impact on the story, that's just an excuse for the popular band of the day to come out and perform? I mean, maybe it's the death of network television has just cleared the deck, and we just don't live in that headspace anymore where we want the holiday special.
Yeah. I think about what you're saying, and, that to me, I've always enjoyed when my favorite television shows, did holiday episodes. I just, of course, recently the holiday episode for Ted Lasso, I loved. I thought it was fantastic, mainly because they uses it a way to kind of mimic a bunch of different holiday films, and each storyline kind of followed a different type of Hollywood film and storyline for the characters. So I thought it was really fun. I still, people may think it's weird, but I absolutely love for season 2, Grey's Anatomy, their holiday episode. It's fantastic. They actually did a Thanksgiving episode and a Christmas episode. Both of them are great. And it's fun to go watch those again, But so there are all of these shows where, you have, and everybody, I think, whether it's MASH or a show like that back in the day, or, every show had a holiday episode at one point in time or another, for one of their seasons, if not maybe multiple of their seasons. But I think that you're right in some ways where, because of the way that television has kind of moved to streaming, and we just don't have a lot of network television, and the big variety holiday special just really hasn't been seen, honestly, since the 80s anyway. Those kind of went to the wayside. And so I think that what we think of is possibly a holiday special just kind of has gone out the window. Except for, and maybe this is just where, again, Lego kind of falls within that perfect framework within Star Wars and fandom, where it's like we can absolutely accept and enjoy the zaniness of that because they can do anything and everything without us worrying about any of the important stuff. And I also I think the original holiday special for Star Wars struggles with this as well. How to create something that is in a galaxy far, far away, but also mirrors our holidays in the here and now. And that's just a hard thing to do, I think, specifically with something like Star Wars. This isn't even like Star Trek, where it's like, them celebrating Christmas at some point. You could see that, if they're just a throwback type of person. But this, it's like there's no connection. And so to create something that has that feel is, obviously the original holiday special really struggled with that. So,
yeah, I think it would have to be in the space of, you would definitely have to be conscious of the timeline. So prequel era or earlier, I could see this holiday special being set, but at the same time, like, prequel era is just too damn serious. There's too much happening of a very serious nature. There's a civil war, and then in the original trilogy, there's a big civil war going on. And I think you are boxed in with how serious things need to be in sort of the Mando timeline, in the Ahsoka-verse that we're navigating our way into. It's possible as well that just Star Wars doesn't lend itself really to a holiday special sort of thing once the lore starts expanding. The holiday special exists in 1978 because even George Lucas was still figuring out exactly what Star Wars was at that point.
Right. Yep. It's a good point. It's a really good point.
We know what Star Wars is now, and Star Wars isn't that. Star Wars is a little too mindful of the different religious and cultural divisions and like all of that different stuff going on in the Joseph Campbell thing. But there's a part of me that still struggles with it. There would have to be some sort of point of attack to embrace that Joseph Campbell-ness of it, because the whole thing with Joseph Campbell wasn't just an examination of the hero's journey, but the fact that societies need their myths to exist. So maybe the point of attack would be the myths that would grow around Luke Skywalker, and you put it between the original and the sequel trilogy, where people start treating Luke Skywalker sort of like Santa Claus in a sense, where he's real, but people start telling stories that are greater than reality about him. And the thing is that actually reminds me of a book that I think is overlooked from the old EU that's actually quite enjoyable, called Luke Skywalker and the Shadows of Mindor, which addresses that very idea that the legend sometimes gets out of control. Do you think that's a possible point of attack? Just like, or am I just holding on too tight? Am I just trying too hard?
No, I mean, I absolutely see how that could be the case. I think they could make something like that work. And again, I do think we're just hitting on the hardest part when it comes to trying to do these things. And for Star Wars, I think you really nailed it. It's like in 1978, this works. This idea kind of, there's something about it where you're like, oh, we could do that. Now it's just, we're too far removed from that. And it just doesn't really make sense for us to go down that road. I don't necessarily know, and I don't think that that's honestly a bad thing. I think it's okay for us to step away from this idea and allow, Star Wars to be its own thing, and to not try to have to fit it into something like that for us. I think that's one of the places, unfortunately, where sometimes we just get a little bit too, you're trying, I think Star Wars as a round hole and a holiday special is the square peg. And we would just be trying to force something that just doesn't need to be forced.
Oh, force something. I see what you did there.
Yeah,
even if
you're welcome.
You didn't mean to.
Yeah.
Well, I think actually then the best way to approach the question is to throw it out to anybody listening and say, how do you see the point of attack for a Star Wars holiday special in the 2020s? Is there a point of attack? Is there some way to do a holiday special for Star Wars that works? Go ahead and let us know. Like Matt said, we're at the Jedi Masters on X. The network is at Join Nerd Party. The Nerd Party on Facebook and Instagram. Go ahead and reach out to us. But Matt, if people want to discuss their ideas, they want to make their pitch to you online about how they would do a Star Wars holiday special in this modern age, where can they reach you?
You can find me all over social media under the name Matt Rushing02. You can also find me, of course, here on the network with Drea Kaufman talking about every single chapter of the Harry Potter series, one chapter at a time. You'll find me over on the TFM network with a bunch of shows. The 602 Club, Literary Treks, Warp 5, The Artificial Tango, The Orb, and A Saddle Up. But John, where can people find you?
Well, you can find me as Castle Junkie online. You can also find me right here on the network co-hosting another show called House Lights with Tristan Riddell and Darren Moser, where we look at the work of directors by different eras and lenses and all of that type of stuff. And appearing over on Matt's show, The 602 Club, on the TFM network every so often. They're always very special episodes, much like holiday specials used to be. And other than that, Matt, I think I need to go wrap my Life Day presents. So I think it's time to close these negotiations.
John, negotiations are closed.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.